So I'm going to start the recording now. So welcome again. And as you know, this is one of 7 weekly conference sessions, and we meet each Thursday at 3 p.m. And I've put in the chat where you can find the full schedule. We hope you'll join us for as many as you're able to. And today, we have the topic Art and Nature as Healing. And today, my name is Matt Del Sesto, and I'm one of the conference organizers, and I'll be also a moderator today. And I'm very pleased to be joined by Genea Richardson and Brendan Wilson. And so we will start by I'll invite Genea and Brendan to introduce themselves, their work, and give a short introduction to themselves. So welcome, and thanks for joining us, Genea and Brendan.
Yes, good afternoon. We're here in Southern California on a beautiful sunny day. My name is Brendan Wilson. I am born and raised here in Los Angeles and studied architecture in school and was way too headstrong to enter into that field. So I settled into a landscape design career where I could work independently and participate in nature on my own terms, if you will. I have been working, I'm sorry, go ahead, your turn. I get nervous.
All right, you don't gotta be nervous. I should have kicked it off. So my name is Genea Richardson, and I was actually born in Boston, but I was raised out here in South Central LA, and I met Brendan. Well, I was incarcerated for 18 years, and then I just been home for 2 years. That's not the summation of my life though, but just to, give a quick introduction. And so I met Brendan when I came home, and he introduced me to landscaping and gardening. And so we started a business together, Angel City Urban Farms, and we do healing in the garden with people. We help humanity re-enter themselves, because formerly incarcerated people are not the only one who needs to re-enter. There's people locked into systems, locked into mindsets, locked into jobs, locked into depression. And so in the garden, we create one safe place where everybody can come, break stereotypes, build bridges, and we get in the dirt.
Nice, thanks. And I guess I'm wondering if you could either both or together, or tell us a little bit about healing and what you see. What does healing mean in your work? What's the role of healing related to some of the spaces you're in or in your work in general?
I think for me, the highlight of healing is just in the very simple, straightforward participation with Mother Nature. She provides a dialogue and a way to participate, which I don't know how to say it exactly. She's very dependable. She has her seasons. She has her own predictable ways of behaving, unlike the rest of the world. And if you let your guard down and open your perception to participating in the rose bush when you're pruning it, it always responds in a forgiving and predictable way. And so it's sort of an art insofar as it gets a person out of their minds, gets them out of their preset. You have to open your perceptions to something that's much bigger than yourself in order to make an adequate participation.
Yeah, and for me, being incarcerated for 18 years, that was extremely difficult to unwrap myself from that. Just the concept of being free, physically free, and then actually having to cultivate that freedom because my body was still locked into that system, still locked into that mindset of being incarcerated, of being oppressed and depressed. So when I came home, you know, I wanted to find healing. I was like a butterfly in the cocoon, and I just wanted to come out. I wanted to explore my wings. I wanted to understand who I was, because inside we're cut off from experience. So experience is what gives us tools to help us to navigate in life. So if I'm not being exposed to experience, then I'm not being introduced to myself. So when I came home, I just wanted that. I needed that. I needed a safe place to be, because certain people took advantage of me. They try to use me, use my story and all these different types of things. And so when I was introduced to Brendan and he put me in the garden, I said, wow, this is an outer reflection of my soul. And so how Brendan so beautifully speaks of the rose, when I would personally go in the garden and I would cut that, prune that rose bush, and I would come back after a measure of time and see how this rose has blossomed, I would see myself in that. I said, wow, there's things that I need to cut off in my life. And so when I cut those things off, this rose bush lets me know that it's okay, because something beautiful is going to bloom into that space. So the garden began to speak to me in those types of ways. When I'm in the azaleas and I'm understanding the language of how to take out what is not needed and to put in this, and the love that we're giving, I'm loving on myself. I'm loving on my family. So it taught me to how to have relationship with myself and relationship with others, because like I said, it's an outer reflection of the soul. And so when you get in there and you actually steel yourself, you have to steel yourself, and you have to begin to understand the language of what's going on around you. What is this tree saying to me? What is the grass needing today? What is this ivy? He needs to be cut out of this tree because he's overcrowding his space. These two things can't correlate with each other. Like all of those things speak to us. So that's what we need. We need to be introduced to our own emotions. We need to be introduced to experiences that are showing us and teaching us how to nurture and care for. And so that's where the healing takes place for me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say that this is not the same Genea that I met a year ago. And it has slowly dawned on me and come to my understanding how much trauma and torture occurs in an incarcerated setting. And I'm starting to understand how people who have that unfortunate, horrible experience come out of that experience with layer upon layer upon layer of defense mechanisms, both outward facing and inward facing ones. And when I met you and some of the other people that we have been in contact with, especially way back when, it wasn't necessarily an easy relationship, because there was always a tussle. She has great skill in protecting herself, but I know that you can't play those games with the garden. Right? You know, Mother Nature, you can't play that game with the rose. You have to be somebody else. And so it is, as you say, like coming out of a cocoon, to be put in a situation where you're not interacting with a person, but you're interacting with something that is responsive, yes, but it's not threatening. Right. And is dependable and does change over the course of time relative to the inputs that you make and the decisions that you make.
Yeah, that's what B's talking about. When you're inside, you master the art of being an introvert. You master the art of going inside of yourself, because there's no escape around you. So when I came home, I realized I was inside of myself so deep that it's been a journey to pull myself out of myself. And so the garden has helped me do that. That's what B's talking about. So.
You wouldn't recognize her face from a year ago.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that kind of perspective in your approach. And I'm wondering how this approach informs some of the work you do, either with plants or with people through Angel City Urban Farms, or just maybe tell us a little bit more about what you do through Angel City Urban Farms. What's your goal? Who do you work with? what do you do, and how does this approach that you're describing inform your work?
Well, some of the things that we do, we do a lot of things, but a few of the things that we do, we have our own community garden. And so recently we actually began to work with foster youth, and they're coming from 6 different foster homes, and they've been in the system for over 10 years. And so you can tell when they get to, we just provide a safe space. People need to feel safe in order to feel loved. And so we raised the garden with the bobcat, and so it was flat land. So when the children began to come, they saw nothing, it was nothing there. And you can tell that they would come and they're so tired, and that's the only word they could say. I'm tired, I'm tired. Like, you're only 15, I'm so tired. And so they're so tense and everything when they come, but we just simply get them in the dirt. We just simply teach them how to plant. We teach them about vegetables. We get them in the soil. And so we're doing soil therapy. So we're teaching them alternative tools to violence. We're giving them tangible, positive tools that they can use for their own personal lives that helps them to navigate. Because when we're digging up roots in the garden, guess what? We get to talk about the roots that we need to dig up in our lives. So this is the curriculum that has been created inside of the garden. There's a lesson and everything. When you're planting, what type of care does that need? So when we're giving this thing physical care, we're talking about the care that we need within ourselves, and we're teaching through caring for these plants. You're giving a lesson, a teaching tool, and you're also being able to talk. So it's appealing to more than one sense, and so it sticks with you better that way. And so we've had various people in the garden, formerly incarcerated people. We've had people from the Netherlands. We had people from the community. We have people from all walks of life that come together. We do music therapy and soil therapy in the garden, and we feed people because everybody likes to eat. So, and we also do landscaping and gardening, and on a professional scale, and different types of things like that. And we hire youth and formerly incarcerated people. So, and it wants to speak to that as well.
Well, we just recently, this is Genea and I, and with a few other post-incarcerated people, we just re-landscaped a big front yard in Brentwood on like a half an acre property, and we transformed a tired, jungly mess into a refuge for birds, and with native plants as its highlight. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to go through the entire process together. So when we met that garden, it was, I must say, it was a garden that I had known from my childhood. This is an old friend's garden, and it had been let go to almost to wildness, and we were able to walk into it together and to discover what was there. And it was just such a lovely experience to watch somebody else discover what I knew was there to begin with, and then to share in the opportunity to give it a transformation.
Exactly. And that's an outer reflection of us, because we have to discover what's inside of us. We're so overrun with all these things that have grown into our lives. So this is just amazing. There's a quick story that I heard recently about a village elder. So the therapists, I don't have anything against therapists, they're wonderful, but the therapists went into this village and they wanted to give therapy because something crazy, very tragic had happened in that village. And so when the elders saw them come in, they said, where's the art? Where is the music? They're giving therapy, but they didn't understand it.
Where's the joy?
You're locking me in one room and you're making me talk about something. And the worst thing in my life, in 4 walls with no music, no art, nothing to physically express myself, nothing to physically get that moving out of me other than speech. And so that's what we do in the garden. We have art, music, we have the garden, and we're doing a whole person form of therapy, because not only are we talking, but now we have living, moving things that is helping us tap into ourselves and release things through a physical activity. So that if that's the healing that's needed nowadays. People you need to appeal to more than one sense.
And I would say that with the foster youth in particular, there's a yearning to make a mark and make a difference, to have an action that produces a tangible result. And the garden is a fantastic opportunity for doing it in any number of different ways.
Yeah, and I've got kids I'm telling you, kids come that's like real life gangbangers, that's like real life, been addicted to drugs and everything. And they all call us Miss. They like, hey, Miss and Mister. And we're like, yeah. And they're like, you know what? I don't think I'm coming back to this garden. Next thing you know, they're calling me on the phone saying, hey, Miss, when we're gonna have the garden again. And they keep coming back consistently. And these are kids that's going through the worst things in their life. But they know that when they come to that garden, they're gonna be safe. They're going to be seen, they're going to be heard. And so they're receiving some type of healing, if we're just implanting seeds into them for their journey to move on in life, to know like, hey, there's an alternative to this. And so, yeah, it's been, we started off with 4 kids. Next thing you know, we had 10. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And they don't have to come. They're coming. They come by out
of their choice. Yeah, yes,
exactly.
It's very impressive.
And you'd mentioned, I think, this kind of approach you're describing of this kind of holistic approach to healing seems really important. I'm wondering if you can say more, especially on, you'd mentioned art, and what, how do you see the role of art in connecting with the garden, or separately, or what do you see as the role of art or kind of creativity, as you were mentioning? I'm wondering if you can say a little more about that. That seems like an important component of this.
I think my answer is going to be horribly simplistic. I apologize in advance.
No, yeah, please.
It's always simple. We complicate things.
But our art is just a way to make an expression outside of language and outside of human interaction for the most part. So it's an opportunity to kick our attention out of where it already was and just direct it to some other place. And that other place can be anything. And it's wonderful just to watch children, or anybody for that matter, put their brain in a place that is not where they normally keep it, and then discover whatever it is that they have created in front of them. I think it's just a matter of it's being a different language that has a different possibility for finding what is already inside a person. Not so much as an opportunity to make something that is special, but just to get something out of yourself that you would never otherwise be able to find.
Yeah, it's definitely. So the art, it went over well, actually. We tried to do art with the kids, and they really got into it. I think that it helps you to tap into a new perspective. Like Bea said, there's one artist, because I also work with Huma House, and we have artists on our employed and formerly and currently incarcerated. And so one of the artists was saying that when he walked down the street and he saw trash, he said it wouldn't be trash to him. It would be something because it had a word or something on it. He would pick it up, he would think about it, and he would create a whole collage off of this one word. So it got his mind moving in a direction, because now he's creating a whole thing. He's trying to understand how to piece together a story by a trash. Most people walk by and it means nothing to no one. But he picked it up and he made something out of it. So it through art. So that was his form of expression. How can I utilize this to get this out of me? How can I utilize this to tell a story that I need to tell, that people need to hear, or just something that I need to heal from? And so as he began doing art, it began to transform his life, and it became a place of darkness to a place of light. And so those are the types of things we like to expose our children to, is because it shows how to change your perspective. It gives you something to release, and when you're tapping into your creativity, you're beginning to understand yourself. So art is a form of creativity, like that we all have to get back to that childlike part in us where we were able to imagine, where we were able to see, because those things are the things that allow us to create in truthfulness, because the things that we create nowadays are pretty much illusions. But anyways, getting back to the creative part of yourself helps you to get back to truth.
I just want to underscore that
Yeah.
because I think there is a real power in play
Mhm.
and accessing that
Yeah.
child inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Great. And we had a follow-up related to this in the chat on what kinds of art projects you've tried or set up, and if there's creative writing part of it ever, or I guess just asking for a little more about what kind of, what kind of art projects.
Yeah, so just we get in there and we paint. Like it's a garden. A garden needs ornaments. So B got a bunch of ornaments. Ain't nothing new. They were old ornaments to make it a whole project to restore these things so that we can simply decorate our space. Or like our artist Kush will come and he does collages. So he's gonna come and teach the kids how to do this in the garden, teach them how to create a story. It's just simple art, drawing, painting, collaging, those types of things.
We started very simply
Mhm.
with giving them the opportunity I found a bunch of steel ornaments that people would typically use on fences. So you can imagine that. And we just sat them down with paint and gave them some very simple instructions about how it's possible. You can, if you want to, mix the paint and find new colors, because I know that that's a joy for me and a wonderful challenge. And their opportunity was simply to make these ornaments their own, and then we incorporated them into the garden.
And you promoted teamwork through that activity.
Right.
Say how you did that.
Well, I wanted each ornament, if you will, to be a reflection of more than one person's work. I wanted people to be able to be in collaboration. I thought that was very important. So we just passed them around, and some people were mixing paints and some people were doing the actual painting, and it was very peaceful and easy. And you mentioned creative writing. We have not done creative writing, though we are starting to ask the kids in particular to do some journaling.
Yeah, we just introduced journals.
And we give them some gentle, easy, straightforward prompts. And it has been remarkable how open they've been to that. I thought maybe one or two kids might, people who are accustomed to putting a pen on a paper would go ahead and get into it, but I think just about everybody did last time.
Yeah. So that's, I just wanted to highlight that team building aspect, because that's what we're able to do in the garden. We need these types of skills in order to understand how to go through life. We can't always just do things by ourselves. So one thing about Brendan, he just had a gentle way of simply passing the ornament to the next person. It's like, oh, that's nice, but what if she added something to it? And they weren't even aware that what was going on, because they're so used to being inside of themselves. So this opens them up to doing something collectively. So not only are we helping them to find an individual identity, but a collective identity as well.
That's great. And it sounds like it has become, from what you were saying earlier too, a space of kind of community and people from different walks of life being able to find community in the garden. And I'm wondering, I guess I'd like to soon open it to some of our participant questions or other experiences from attendees or questions that people might have for you. But I'm wondering if you were to share, you've shared so much with us already and so much wisdom and important kind of insights, but I guess if you had any particular lesson from your experience through Angel City Farm, Urban Farms, or just in general, a lesson you were going to share with someone who is maybe starting to develop some kind of garden project, kind of similar to what you're doing. What kind of lesson might you offer from your work, from your experience, or yeah, if you had something to share about that.
I think I'll start. And probably like almost everybody over there on the other side of the screen, I grew up in an environment where my world was pretty predictable. I had two parents and, a roof over my head and plenty to eat and so on. And the people that we are encountering now don't come from that same sort of background. And one of the things that I have discovered rather distressingly is that many of the people that we're finding ourselves in relationship with don't really have a good relationship with the idea of the future. They don't have a future that they can project themselves out into, that they trust or that they know will be there. Whereas I grew up and I knew when I got out of bed, of course, that, in the evening, my future would be there to greet me, and on and on and on. I have always known, as far out as I want to push this concept, that I was going to be okay. And I find it's really challenging just to think about how to show someone how they can have a better relationship with their own future, because I'm sure that this will precipitate certainly a comfort in themselves like the one that I feel. And I'm just terrified to think about how it would feel for me if I didn't have this in my life. And I think that we're trying to, or at least we are together, show in gardening how everything we do in the garden is always future related. There isn't a single thing that you ever do which precipitates a result in the present. There's no immediate gratification there whatsoever. Every last little thing you do, when planting a seed or tilling soil, is all future related. And the garden is so sweet in its ability to give back relative to the intention that you put there. Mm-hmm. I mean, the seed does sprout if you do it right, and doing it right is not that difficult. And I'm hoping, I'm just hoping that this will sink into these beautiful little minds.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because that is so true. Everything that you do in that garden it produces a future. Yeah. So also that, because that has helped for me, but also, one of the first commandments, I'm not trying to get, all religious or nothing, but one of the first commandments was to, keep the garden.
There you go.
Why was that important? Why was it important to keep the garden? Because the garden sustains us. The mm-hmm. earth sustains us. And so what we do in our garden is we're getting back to the importance of taking care of the womb of the earth. Mm-hmm. The womb, what does the womb do? It cultivates and creates life. And so we have to understand the processes of that in order to understand ourselves, in order to understand how to care for ourselves and other people. So one of the lessons is we create life in the garden. So when we're in there, we're making it alive. We're making it active. Mm-hmm. B brings his little panini machine, and now we're picking vegetables that we grew in the garden, mm-hmm. the lettuce and the tomatoes, and we're making sandwiches with them. And we're teaching people how to eat healthy, and we're teaching people how to be aware, and look what we can do. Some of the kids come, and the people come, not just the kids, the people that have come, they say, I never thought that I can grow anything. Mm-hmm. But yet the garden has plants as tall as our heads now, and it started from nothing. Yeah. So you're showing people their potential, you're tapping into it. Mm-hmm. So if you want to start a garden, make sure that you know that it's alive, it's active, make it living, make it a part of, your daily lives. Correlate those things to life, relate those things to each other, to ourselves. So, Yeah. It brought me back to life. Being in the garden saved my soul. It literally saved me because I was inside of myself, and that garden allowed me to flourish and open like a butterfly. You know, if you cut a butterfly's if you cut his little cocoon open, guess what? He's not going to be able to fly because his wings are going to be crippled. The struggle of coming out of the cocoon is what gives him the strength to fly. And so in the garden, that's what we're creating. We're creating a safe cocoon, and the world is creating the struggles, but we're letting them know in the garden that it's okay to fly. All of those struggles are going to strengthen your wings, and it's okay to fly. And so by them seeing that physically, that they're changing stuff, it changes stuff internally. So if you want to start a garden, just make sure that you make it alive and active.
It certainly is a safe place to have a transformation in yourself, unlike so much of the rest of the world. And it's also an appropriate place to practice caretaking.
Yeah,
Right? We caretake the plants, they respond.
exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I wanted to open it now to any other questions or to other attendees to participate in the discussion. I'd encourage you to please unmute yourself and go ahead and just ask your question. If you'd like, you can put it in the chat and I can read them off, but it'd be great to hear and see you, and unmute yourself and participate. It'd be wonderful to have you participate. So yeah, any questions, comments, reflections?
Hi, yeah, I'm kind of wondering what your, like, the healing part of your program works. Is it just having conversations as you're gardening, or is there some kind of curriculum that you follow or that you developed to address trauma?
Yeah, so this is the soil therapy, but really the first part of any type of healing that's happening in any place is creating that safe space and creating relationship. So when people first come to the garden, we're not structured like, okay, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. We kind of just let them get a feel for it, and then we get a feel for them. The most important, when I was incarcerated, the most important lesson that I learned in there, despite anything, is it's important to see people. I see you. It's important to see people, not see them and dictate, not see them and try to tell them what to do and do X, Y, and Z and what you need to fix. See a person for who they are. Like, I see you and I hear you. And so when people come to the garden, we just let them know that they're seen. We just let them have a feel, put their eyes and feet on the land. And so then once they come a few times and I got a feel for the people, they got a feel for the place, then we begin to incorporate curriculum, but it's not so much structure. So we do this in a subtle way. So like because we don't want people to feel like they're being grouped, especially being formerly incarcerated, because they try to group us to death and think that helps us. And so when we get in the garden, we like the soil therapy is simply, well, like I said earlier, the curriculum is, so week 1, we're pulling up roots. Week 2, we're planting. Week 3, it might be about seeds. And so there's a lesson in all of those things. So when we're actually pulling up roots, we're actually having a conversation of the roots that need to be pulled out in our lives. And while they're doing the activity, I'm walking around talking, saying, okay, can you relate this to something in your life that might need to be pulled up? And so we just have these conversations. And so the next thing, when you're planting a seed, what is the depth that the seed needs to be planted, which is extremely important. It can't be planted too deep or too shallow because it doesn't have enough strength to push itself out of that soil. And if it's too shallow, it's going to fall right out. What is the lesson and how does that relate to us in our lives? And so that's the curriculum. And that's where people are starting to get it. The lights are starting to turn on because they're physically doing it. So they understand with their hands. And then when we're talking about it and we're getting inside of ourselves, this is trauma therapy. We're addressing traumas. Roots are traumas, systemic traumas, food traumas, physical traumas. historical traumas. We're addressing these things in the garden. So we have these conversations while we're doing the activity, and that's the curriculum.
I love it. Thank you.
And to me, there's something really powerful in that for me too, around when you're sharing this around, and this question on the curriculum or the approach. I think there's something that strikes me about how there are often, especially it seems like in my time working in prison, there's so many the interventions are so much therapeutic structure, regimented, right? And yet you're describing a kind of practice and approach. And it's not that, there's not value to, some of these therapeutic techniques and methods and things, but just that you're describing an approach and a method that, is much more relational and much more kind of, in a way, kind of what you're saying, it strikes me as very grounded in a way, in the relationships.
It's easy to find
people and
metaphors that are personal in all of these activities that we do. And so you're not shoving big ideas down anybody's throat. You're just sort of teasing ideas out of them and showing them how in a metaphorical way they have choices.
Other questions, comments, reflections?
I have a question. First of all, you brought me to tears. I'm like trying to keep myself from crying. It's just heartwarming, touching the soul, all that you're doing, and just how you've described it, because it's a part of all of us. I was just outside earlier today in the weeds and in the thing, and it's so true. You start thinking about what's going on. What I'd like to know, two things actually. I want to ask one about, Genea, when you first came out and you got involved in this, was there any, were you resistant in any way, or had you had some prior experience while incarcerated, planting or anything like that? And then the second thing was just finding out about how you were able to allow the foster youth to be involved in your program. Thanks.
Okay, is that Althea? Althea, you're talking? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Althea. Thank you for asking that question. So yeah, inside, most prisons, they don't have any green inside of them. There's only 2 women's prison in California, which is Chowchilla and CIW, and I was at the Chowchilla for 18 years. And so most prisons don't have green, but by the grace and glory of God, where I was at, they happen to have a small little, we called it a garden, but really it was just a few trees and some grass right there, a little space. And so one of the ladies who she actually had a double life sentence. And she came to me one day and she said, "Hey, are you interested in watering?" And I said, "You know what? Yeah, sure, I'll water." So she allotted me a time, and I would go out, and that particular time the prison was still, because there's always something. You're like stuck in a perpetual state of PTSD when you're incarcerated, because you're always on high alert because you're about to get stabbed up. It's always something going on. You always have to be on high alert. So you're like in id brain every single day. And so when she allotted me that time, that was one rare time where the prison was still. It was right before chow. And so I would go out and it would be quiet and I could actually hear the birds and I would hear the rustle of the wind through the trees, and they began to speak to me. And it was just something simple. I just sat there and watered, pulled a few weeds, but inside it gave me a peace of mind of all the things that was going on in a prison that stilled me for that 1 minute, and I was able to focus on something other than the foolishness. I was able to focus on the breath of God at that moment, but I didn't even realize the impact that it had on me until I came home and was actually introduced to gardening and landscaping, to the other garden. So I did not resist it. That was my only experience inside with the garden, but it was creating an experience for me that I lacked in there. And so that was just the seed being planted of what was to come in my life. And so when I first came home, I had bad experiences. You know, you create one reality in there, and then when you come home, reality is not what you created. And so I had a few bad experiences trying to express myself, trying to find myself, trying to figure things out. And so when I met Brendan, and he's like, hey, just come to this garden. We're like, we're in Beverly Hills or something. I'm from South Central LA. I'm like, whoa, it's quiet out here. There's no helicopters. And so he put me in the garden, and I just breathe. I finally just breathe. So no, I didn't resist it. I'm like, because I was able to relate that back to me having that small little green space inside when I was able to breathe. But like I said, most prisons don't have that, and they don't even have that on every yard in the women's prison. I just happen to be on that particular yard with that little pot of green. On the other yards, it's like a desert. It's not even a tree. And so now the youth, when they came, it was through another program. Another program knew what we were doing in the garden. They had an office somewhere else, and the kids just they wouldn't get off their cell phones. It was busy. It was craziness going on. And so this particular person, he had came to some of our events that we had in the garden. Because we usually there on Saturdays. And so he was like, one day he just came, he was like, hey, what if we bring the kids to the garden? And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Practically out of frustration.
Yeah. And so but when they came, it's been a while now, and they just keep coming back, and we saw that it was effective. So I hope that I answered all your questions. Did I miss something?
I think you did well.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that, Althea, or did I miss something? Miss Althea.
Had to get to my unmute. Great. You get perfect answer. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Love it.
Any other questions, comments, reflections? There's one here in the chat on Angel City Urban Farms have a website or social media or other way to follow up with you.
We have the beginning of an Instagram account. So you can find us at Angel City Urban Farms and then the number 8.
Yeah, but the thing about that is, I was incarcerated for 18 years with no technology. So when I came home, I'm still trying to understand how to navigate through this. And that's just not Brendan's lane. He's in the dirt. Put him on the dirt, he's happy. So we're still trying to develop our website and our Instagram. We have a few things on there.
But you can definitely find us and reach us through that portal.
Yeah. And then also I work for Huma House. So I do have a website with Huma House at www.humahouse.com. You'll see me on there and my little profile and stuff. You can always reach me through there, and we can always drop our emails in the chat if you are interested in anything. We're actually about to start, and I forgot about this. We're gonna start a Living Well tour with Brother Sir, and so we're gonna actually take kids to different gardens. So we don't want to just our garden. We're trying to create a community space so that people can come and feel comfortable from all walks of life, which we have been successful at. But we want to get community involved on a bigger scale, and we want the kids and the people, not just the kids, the people, to know that there's more than just this space. There's other people doing this. We want to take them to Compton Gardens where they got the horses and the farms and and just the different experiences, because like I said, when we were incarcerated, we're cut off from experience. So when I came home, I didn't even know certain questions to ask to even get an answer, to even begin to understand. I couldn't even articulate or form I'm like, what do I do? Because I didn't have the experience. So what we're trying to do is couple our program with experiences. So some of these kids have never been to the beach. It's the beach. We live in California. So we want to start just taking people to museums, incorporating the art, because that's extremely important as well, to the museums, to the gardens, to the beaches, to different types of things. So you have to couple anything that you're doing with music, art, experience.
I think one of the real strengths of our model is that we're trying to bridge the boundary from both directions. So in our community garden space, we are very purposefully inviting my own personal neighbors and people who have absolutely no relationship with incarceration whatsoever, to meet the people who have had that experience. And so the conversation, the eye-opening can happen from both directions.
Yeah, because that's important, because that's where we're helping people re-enter their humanity, because most people have been locked into these mindsets. And so you developed all these stereotypes from the media and from all these different people, but everybody in life has something to offer another person. And so if we keep up these judgments, then we're never going to receive we're never going to get the whole piece of the puzzle. We're not going to get it. And so the beauty, like B's from Pacific Palisades. I'm from South Central LA. Who would have thought we have a company together? When B met me, I'm partner at the company. We're equal. I'm not an employee. I'm partner. Right. You know, like who would have ever thought us from two different walks of life are, you know, doing something so beautiful together in our own communities, mending these bridges. So people are re-entering their humanity as well. And we're, you know, cutting off all of that foolish perception that has been created out there, and people are really loving each other and seeing each other.
I know from my perspective and from the perspective of other people who have not had any interaction with incarceration, that it's very difficult to realize that as a society that I'm participating in, that we are in fact forcing people into trauma actively. And I just think it's important to I don't know, to take some responsibility for my participation in that horribleness.
Thank you. And yeah, and thanks for giving us this way of seeing too of reentry as everyone needing to return maybe into their humanity and their connection to themselves, so thank you so much for bringing that. Any other questions, reflections? People want to unmute yourself and feel free to chime in.
I've got a question about the types of plants that you might have people planting seeds for. Do you think about the timeline where you have some sort of more instant results, maybe with lettuce, as opposed to, and that relates to also, do you get a commitment from these young people that they will show up for sort of 6 months or to sort of have a bit of continuity? No. Okay. Yeah. I'm curious about both of those questions.
Okay, I'm gonna let B answer part of this because that's like that plant genius right there. But yes, and I'm glad because we specialize in sunflowers. We do vegetables and stuff, but sunflowers is it. So I'm gonna let B break that down to you. But no, we don't make these kids commit to anything.
We don't have any control over what they do.
And I wouldn't want them to, because their lives are so what do you call it, that it's not consistent. Their lives are so inconsistent that we're just happy if they show up, you know, one day. So by trying to force them and lock them into a system, we're not trying to lock them into a system. We want them to know that this space is always open to you, that this is a safe space for you, and you're welcome to come and go at your free will. And so we're teaching them how to understand free will, because, you know, even being in the foster care system, there's systems, there's programs, there's timelines, there's all of this stuff. I come and I put a bunch of food on the table and they're like, I can grab the food now. I'm like, you can eat anytime that you want, because that's a part of their development. That's a part of them understanding that they have choices. And so, no, we don't make them commit to anything, but despite the fact of that, they keep coming back because they know that this is consistent. They know that we're going to always be the same with them, that it's this, they know what they got. So yeah, but they come back. We'll talk about the sunflowers. I'm so excited about the sunflowers.
To answer your question, so no, there's no particular plant that we grow that gives some sort of instant gratification. I am thinking to do a session where we're doing sprouting seeds like alfalfa sprouts and things like that, which they could take back to their homes and participate in real time. The way that our program works with them, they come once a week on a Monday and then the following Wednesday. So there's an enormous amount of lag time between those visits. And that's the reason that we've chosen to put up the Instagram account to begin with, is we want to be able to at least invite them to check in on the garden on their own time while they're, while during that whole month when we don't see them.
Great.
And apart from that, we're just growing the most normal sorts of vegetables, though I am a big snob, so we're planting very nice ones indeed.
And if you want to get people, in awe, I'm telling you, plant sunflowers. There's various types of sunflowers. Sunflowers are magical. You know, they have so many things you can do. Talk about the sunflower, the Fibonacci circle, all of that type of stuff. That engages people in conversation, and they grow like this. They grow so fast. Yeah. We have sunflowers that we just grew a few weeks ago. They're already as tall as Brendan. And so they're
considerably taller.
Exactly. So that's a quick turnover. So if you want people to see their progress quickly, then sunflowers is always a good thing to plant, because those kids come back and the next time they come, they're knee high. The next time they're like, whoa, and they like, I never knew I can go. So they see that transformation happening right before their very eyes. And yarrow and all that types of stuff grows pretty quickly. Buckwheat, we grow a lot of native plants because native plants are good for the soil. And so that's always a conversation you can have, the native tongues with people.
We planted a pollinator garden first, and as you might imagine, the itty bitty little pollinators have all shown up, and they're just cute as can be. Yeah. And I guess I kind of sold the sunflower short a little bit, but
yeah.
But I have an amazing collection of sunflowers, and a lot of them are truly giant. So we are growing some of the ones that could conceivably be 17 feet tall, and they're definitely reaching in that direction. So we're growing some that are multi, and some that are single head and big head and small heads and different colors. Yeah. And it's always an eye opener for somebody who's only known sunflowers in a packet that they bought at the grocery store, right? To see all of the different ways that they can present themselves and still be sunflowers like they know as a food.
Yeah, and most of the stuff that we grow, we have the people put them into the seedling trays first, because you can't just put certain things directly into the ground. And so when they put stuff in the seedling trays, it needs a lot of care at first. And so some people we allow them to take them home, water them, care for them, and then bring them back when they've matured to the point where their roots can be put into the ground. So that also keeps people engaged in the process. You can always do milkweed and start a butterfly sanctuary. We brought butterfly cocoons to the kids, and they just loved it. And then we're able to pass them out, and so people can actually bring them to their home, watch the process of the butterfly coming out, and be able to free it. There's those things keep people engaged. Yeah.
Great. I think we have time for a couple more questions. If there's any remaining questions, there's something in the chat here on sunflowers that I think you're answering. But anything else? If you'd like to unmute yourself, feel free.
I have a question for y'all. Hi, my name is Douglas. I'm a horticultural therapy instructor in Rikers Island. And wow, really appreciate what y'all are sharing with me and us. And one thing I think, it seems like y'all are really good at just kind of knowing what the space needs, knowing what people who are in your garden need, and letting them, have their own autonomy and space to kind of find that, but then also giving them guidance and your own kind of knowledge. And that's something that I struggle with as an instructor, is how to balance, the structure of instruction, like saying ahead of time what we're going to do, in my own mind, thinking what the garden needs. And then as well to give people their own space to kind of do what is right for them in that day and in that moment. Maybe some incident happened in the housing area. So my plan for the day is not going to work anymore because now we need, to really dig into like art therapy, because we need to work through something. Or anything, right, that comes up. So I guess I'm just kind of curious, how do you balance the needs of the garden and the food production or plant production with and all the work there is to do with your art therapy, and how do you kind of balance that so that the people who come in get the most out of both?
I think that people's interest attracts other people's interest. So I always gravitate towards the couple of people who are most open and willing and interested in participating. And then the folks who are standing back and being standoffish, or who maybe just had a bad day and can't get out of themselves, just demonstrating in front of them that there is progress being made, and conversation is the way that I like to bring people to the fore.
And so that's where me and B come in as a team, because B's focused on the task at hand, and it has the people who wants to be engaged. And so everybody they have specific needs. And so my job is to keep eyes on the land. I keep eyes on the people. I'm looking for the specific needs of the people. So the people who are on the side and they don't want to participate and they have a very standoff, I find something that we can relate to. So when the kids come, Paul said I become all things to all people. So the kids, I was like, what do you like? Well, what do you like? If you don't like to be in the garden, you don't like the dirt, what do you like? And so when they tell me what they like, and B's a witness to this, they've come all closed up and balled up, didn't want to participate, didn't want to be in the garden. But when I get to talking to them and about things they like, then they get comfortable, then their shoulders relax. Then they, if they're having a bad day, we just take a walk, simply take a walk through the garden, talk about a sunflower, give them the option to be able to express themselves. And so production is still going on. And by me talking to this individual about their specific needs and things that they like to do, somehow I'm able to engage them in planting. They just end up coming and I'm like, okay, come on, why don't you just plant a seed with me? Come on, let's talk about, what do you like? Oh man, that's tight. It's just being relatable. That's what Nelson Mandela did that too. He would research people and, get what they like. And he would always kick off the conversation with something that would interest them. And so I find that to be very effective. It's just finding things that people are interested in. And
you really, she's amazing at loosening up the mood in the garden. If sometimes the kids come in, it's just dark. And they can't wait to eat and get home, and they're just not available. Yeah, and usually one mood dictates the rest of the crowd. And so it's just about making them feel comfortable. You have to just make people feel comfortable. If you don't want to plant a seed, that's fine. You don't have to plant a seed. But let's talk about something we can relate to. And so, like I said, once you kick that conversation off, then their defenses are down a little bit. And now it's, you can talk. You talk about the power of what we're doing. Like, how would you feel? What do you need to grow in your life? And so when we're planting that seed, I always find that to be effective. I don't know if that answers your question, but paying attention to specific needs is good to have a team so that they keep eyes on people so that they can engage them in conversations of things that they are interested in. It may not have nothing to do with what you're doing that day, but find something that they are interested in and then find a way to relate that to the activity that's happening that day.
And thank you so much.
Yeah, because some of the kids, they be like, Miss, I'm not coming back to the garden, or I'm not planting nothing. By the end of the day, they done planted a whole tray of seeds. They're calling me, talking about when we're gonna have the garden again. Oh, because I give them my phone number and I make sure that I maintain relationship with them. I know that you're working in a prison and there's certain things that you can't do, but also another thing that I find effective is if I hear the kids. If a kid says, oh, I like music, then guess what? I'm gonna go find a keyboard. I'm gonna go buy a keyboard and surprise them with the keyboard. If they say, I need face wash. Oh, you have problems with your face. I may not verbalize it, but the next time I come back, oh, here, I heard that you needed face wash. Just simple things, because now they're being seen. And so this is developing relationship. And so I don't know if you're not able to do those physical things, but maybe you can be mindful of other things that they might like, if it be a certain piece of art or something, and then come back and say, oh, okay, well, I would like to incorporate this topic because I heard you say that you like this. And so then that begins to break people down, because they like, wait a minute, somebody's seeing me, they paying attention to me. Now I feel comfortable enough to talk, because now I feel safe enough to be loved, to receive love. Mhm.
Right on. Thank you.
Any one final question? Any final question out there? Okay, great. Well, thanks. Yeah, I wonder if Jane and Brendan, I don't know if you have anything from this conversation. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything long or nothing at all if you'd like, but if you have any final parting words, really appreciate the time you've taken to share some of your wisdom and insight with all of us. But I don't know if you have any final thought on your mind as you leave.
Landscapers at Mac.
No, forget it. Do you have a final thought? He's asking.
Yes, you be. I did a whole lot of talking.
I just enjoyed everybody's participation. Thank you for allowing us to help move whatever ball forward that you're moving.
Yeah, I
Great.
appreciate
Yeah,
everybody
absolutely.
coming. I appreciate everybody's patience, everybody's time, everybody's ear and willingness to listen to something. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people were moving forward. We don't want to hear, we did a lot of talking, but it's good to begin to engage in conversations and be open to new perspectives. And so I dropped our emails in the chat. If anybody's interested in anything, just shoot us an email.
Well, thank you so much, Genea and Brendan. We really appreciate you. And for everyone else who's joining us, and Genea and Brendan, if you wish, our next week, our topic is preparing incarcerated youth and adults for careers in environmental sectors. So a little bit more broad, but we'll be here at the same time on Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time that is in your corner of the world. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. And thanks again so much to our presenters. So thanks.
Good afternoon.